Monaco are your new Ligue 1 champions, and I now shudder to think how much money PSG will spend this summer to rectify that fact. No matter what happens in the championship playoff, Americans have even more reasons to watch the Premier League next season. Walter Mazarri and Watford part ways in roughly the same way that Fredo and the Corleone family did. Inter Milan probably won't be triggering that buyout clause in Mauricio Pochettino's Tottenham contract, and the transfer rumor mill has kicked into gear. It's Thursday, May 18th, 2017, which means happy 46th birthday to American goalkeeping legend, Brad Fredo. From Dirty Tackle, Howler Magazine, and the Total Soccer Show, it's The Goalmouth, brought to you this week by X1 Fuel. Up first, it's a Champions edition of the podcast today. We've got Bidvest Wits winning the South African Premier League, Shakhtar Donetsk winning the league in Ukraine, and Wydad Athletic Club are your league champions in Morocco. I know we're all enthused. Most notably, though, for the first time in 17 years, Monaco are league-owned champions. The last time they won the league, David Trezeguet was their top scorer. Their manager, Claude Puel, was only 38, and they employed the likes of Fabien Barthez and Rafa Marquez. Yes, both of them. How that team didn't implode, I will never know. This time around, it was future most expensive player in the world Kylian Mbappe and Radamel Falcao who found the back of the net for Monaco, and the resulting 2-0 win over Saint Etienne was enough to put the title race out of reach. The victory also brings an end to PSG's 4-year domination of Ligue 1, which would seem more impressive if Lyon hadn't won the league an absurd 7 straight times between 2001 and 2008. Nevertheless, it is the plucky story of a team owned by one billionaire who play in a tax haven, bringing an end to the reign of another club, also owned by a billionaire, who play in one of the most expensive cities on the planet. Kidding aside, credit must be given to Monaco manager Leonardo Jardim, who combined a group of crafty veterans and incredibly skillful youngsters to pull off the victory. Additional credit to teenager Kylian Mbappe, who, much to the chagrin of sporting directors around the world, added more zeros to his price tag by scoring yet another skillful goal. A link to that clip is in today's email. Over in England, Huddersfield increased their chances of struggling to stay alive in the Premier League next season by eliminating Sheffield Wednesday in their championship playoff semi-final. The first leg was 0-0, and Wednesday's match finished 1-1. Since away goals rule was not in effect, the game went to penalties, which Huddersfield won 4-3. They advanced to the championship playoff final against Reading on Monday, May 29th. American fans can rejoice regardless of that result. If Reading go up, then U.S. national team midfielder Danny Williams will be in the Premier League. If Huddersfield advance, then David Wagner will be managing in the Premier League. For those who don't know, Wagner was born in West Germany, played his entire club career in Germany, and started off his managerial career at Borussia Dortmund 2. He also made 8 appearances for the U.S. national team, which means if Huddersfield go up, we will have another 100% American managing in the Premier League. All this talk of teams being crowned champions and the looming playoff final reminds me that we have very much reached the end of the season, which means that sound you just heard was 1,000 transfer rumor mills sputtering to life. Here's a quick recap of the stories so far, some of which will almost definitely happen and some of which almost certainly will not. Watford have confirmed that manager Walter Mazarri will be leaving the club at the end of the season. Club chairman Scott Dewsbury stated, quote, "After the board discussed with Walter Mazarri the club's future goals and aspirations, it was decided that he will be stepping down from his position as the club's head coach after the final game of the 2016-17 season," end quote. I'm no expert, but I feel like there's a decent chance that the club's future goals were defined as not continuing to employ Walter Mazarri, and their aspirations were explained as finding someone else to coach the team who isn't named Walter Mazarri. Claudio Ranieri, Gary Monk, and most likely Hull's Marco Silva are the frontrunners for that Watford gig. More rumors in just a moment, but first, today's episode of The Goalmouth is brought to you by X1 Fuel, which is a pre- and post-workout formula for athletes who expect more from their workouts and on-field performances without sacrificing long-term health. That's no chemical ingredients, no caffeine, no artificial sweeteners, just a whole lot of goodness to get you going. I've used the pre-workout ignition formula, and it actually made me happy to run. The post-workout formula made me happy that I had run, and it tasted like chocolate milkshake, so that was glorious. Best of all, Goalmouth listeners can get 10% off their orders by using the promo code Goalmouth, all one word, all uppercase, at checkout. There's a link to their site in today's Goalmouth email. Now let's get back to rumor mongering. Mauricio Pochettino definitely won't be managing Watford next year, nor will he be managing anyone else other than Tottenham. Earlier in the week, reports in Italy had suggested that Inter Milan could trigger a £4.2 million buyout clause in Pochettino's Spurs contract. Those reports now seem slightly incorrect, given that the Spurs manager himself has clarified that such a clause doesn't actually exist. Quote, "No, there is no buyout clause in my contract. I will stay here next season. There are many, many rumors, but I am committed to Tottenham, and I have no reason to leave the club. I will stay here, don't worry. Preseason starts on July 3rd. You will see me here, don't worry." End quote. And somehow, with all that said, I guarantee you that somewhere a tabloid journalist spent a solid 5 minutes trying to figure out a way to turn that quote into something that could justify a headline, thought better of it, and instead decided to print a completely ridiculous story like, say, North and South Korea hosting a World Cup together. Yes, the Sun actually printed that. No, it isn't going to happen. Yes, that newspaper is the worst. More quick rumors. The Times says that Michael Keane will be returning to Manchester United from Burnley for £25 million. Glad to see United are keeping alive their new tradition of spending absurd amounts of money to buy back players they let go for cheap. Chelsea appear to be pursuing a similar policy. First there was Nemanja Matic, then David Luiz. Now, Transfer Nostradamus Gianluca Di Marzio reports that Chelsea are well on their way to bringing back Romelu Lukaku to replace Diego Costa if and when he departs for China. The price tag for Lukaku's return is believed to be in the neighborhood of £70 million. And finally, not to be outdone in the spending literal boatloads of cash department, Tianjin Quanjin of the Chinese Super League have offered Borussia Dortmund's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang a salary that would amount to more than $55 million per year, or even more absurdly, over $1 million per week. In similar news, Daryl Grove once offered me money not to play for a Sunday League team. Yes, that actually happened. And with that, we've come to the end of yet another Goalmouth episode. You can explore all these stories in more depth by subscribing to our newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Before I go, I wanted to say congratulations to Christos FC out of Baltimore. They are an amateur team who don't practice, but they managed to eliminate our local USL side, the Richmond Kickers, in the US Open Cup last night. Their most impressive player, in my opinion, was Daniel Baxter, who works nights as an X-ray technician in a Baltimore hospital. Take that, FA Cup. We've got majesty of our own over here. Anyway, I've been Taylor Rockwell. Ryan Bailey will be with you tomorrow. Until then, here's your Goalmouth top tip. David Wagner is an American. Back off, Germany.